welcome. Welcome to the Linked Parishes Podcast. I'm Donald McCorkindale, Church of Scotland Minister for Acharichal and Ardnamurchan, linked with Ardgour, Morvern and Struntian, bringing you news from these parishes and beyond. And from beyond these parishes, we welcome our guest today from neighbouring Mull and Iona. Welcome to you, Amanda MacQuarrie.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here, and thanks for the invitation.
It's lovely to have you on the podcast. It was nice to meet up with you in person yesterday in Oban at the Presbytery Mission District gathering, and now we are on Zoom and able to have a wee chat. Amanda, some of the folk here on this side of the Sound of Mull may not have met you yet. Do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us a wee bit about how long is it you've been on Mull now?
I've been on Mull now for about 18 months. I moved at the beginning of November 2024 and started work here on the 30th of November on St Andrew's Day 2024. So it must be about 18 months now. They say time flies when you're having fun, so I've no idea. It's just whizzed past. So yeah, been here for that length of time. Been a minister for about 12 years now, I think, since I was ordained, and served in a parish in Bowness Old Kirk, as it was at that time, for 8 years. And 2 years before that, I was an associate minister in a team ministry on the other side of Falkirk.
Right, yeah. So
yeah, done a few different things.
Bowness, back in my old stomping ground. My first charge was in Bonnybridge in Falkirk Presbytery. Yeah,
I didn't realise you had been in Bonnybridge.
Yeah.
Was that St Helens?
Well, I inherited the union that had arisen out of Bonnybridge Parish Church and High Bonnybridge St Helens. Yeah. Yep.
I didn't realise you were. I knew you were in WTB, but I hadn't realised you were in Bonnybridge.
Right, yeah. Goodness, it's probably 10 plus years ago, I was invited back to Bonnybridge on the occasion of their 21st anniversary of the union. And I was able to kind of joke with them about the things that, Communion Sunday, it's time for the St Helens silver to be used, and that's the wrong pulpit fall. It should be swapped around this month. And 21 years on, you could hardly see the joy. But yeah, it's difficult with all these unions and readjustments, as we used to talk about, and there's been a lot more change. Is all this affecting things on Mull and Iona?
Absolutely. I mean, we're dealing with change constantly. I'm the first minister that's done all of Mull and Iona. Prior to me, there was a vacancy for a number of years in what is now the Ross of Mull and Iona. It wasn't called that then. They're a new union. Just in August 24, they were united just before I came, and so that's been different for them, getting used to what a union looks like, a new Kirk session, and new ways of doing things as a union, and doing things together, but also with a new minister and the changes that brings. So there's been lots of change down there, and not just in terms of that, but they're also linked for the first time with North Mull. And so getting used to the fact that a minister doesn't even live in the parish and what that looks like. So yeah, there's been lots of change for them in a very short space of time. And it's taken a wee while just to get used to it. And that change continues. We've just actually sold a building down there as well. There were 3 buildings, one in Iona, one in Craig, and one in Vanessa, and the church in Craig has just transferred ownership to a local community trust who are going to run it. So yeah, lots of things to get our heads around in the Ross of Mull and Iona, and what change looks like, and just the change that everybody else is experiencing too. Older congregations, no young people, and there's a lot of fear's too strong a word, but a lot of anxiety about the future, and that's not just in the Ross of Mull and Iona, that's also in North Mull. A real concern among the Kirk sessions about the age of office bearers and who's going to take this on into the future.
Absolutely, yeah, yep. General Assembly will be coming up in May the 15th to the 18th. I will be a commissioner this year. Was able to pick up a late cancellation. Looking forward to. Yes, I am looking forward to General Assembly. Haven't yet read many of the reports, but from what I have read and heard already, I think there's maybe. I think often I've said, nothing is going to change until we really reach that point of urgency. And I think maybe we've reached that now. And, it's time to stop talking and juggling the deck chairs, but actually time for some real change and emphasis on growing the church. I think over the last few years there's been too much about managing decline and making some structural changes. But yeah.
I mean, they say that in change management. They say, nothing will change until actually you get to the point where you have to face death. Nobody's going to change their lifestyle until the doctor says to them, unless you do this, you're going to die. It has to be that start for people to actually start changing their mindset, changing their habits, changing how they think about things. And church is exactly the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And at our core, we have a story of death and resurrection. It should be second nature to us.
Yeah, and it doesn't faze me in a sense. Decline doesn't faze me or scare me because we are resurrection people, and God obviously has a plan. And church will continue. It just won't continue in the way that we know it. It's going to look different.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's going to be different.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's trying to get people's heads around that, I think, is the big challenge for today. I see the challenge that we have here where everybody thinks the Sunday service is what people have to come to church. And it's like, no, they see everything else as a door into that Sunday service, and it's about just helping them to understand that if families go to messy church, that's church.
Absolutely.
That's how they do church. If folk engage with walking church, that's their church. That's how they're engaging with church. If folk are going to our monthly Sunday evening contemporary service, Sundown, that's church for them. That's where they're encountering God. Everybody does it in different ways. Folk don't come to the Sunday service because it doesn't float their boat.
Amen. Yeah. Yep. Tell us more about walking church.
It was something I started in my last parish. I started it after I had been on pilgrimage. I did my own pilgrimage along the West Highland Way in 2023. So read as I walked. I read a book. I can't remember the name of it. I can text you it later if you want. And you can put it in the
Don't
notes.
worry.
You can do podcast notes.
Yeah.
And it really spoke to me, and it referenced other books as well. And one of the books it referenced was the 3 Mile an Hour God. Jesus walked everywhere. He went in a boat, but he didn't jump on a bus. He didn't get in the car and scoot from place to place. He walked, and as he walked, he encountered people. And so I went on my own journey of encounter along the West Highland Way. I did it in theory on my own, but I didn't do it on my own because actually at different points along the way, God brought different people across my path. And I had lots of different experiences and different discussions. And some of them, any discussion you have on pilgrimage is profound because it has something to do with the journey. But some of them were just mind-blowing. And they were really meaningful, and it struck me that we do life on the way. Life isn't a destination. Life isn't about getting to somewhere. Actually, life is the journey. And when I was thinking about it, Christianity at one point was called the way, It wasn't called Christianity. It was the way. And so once I returned from pilgrimage, being outdoors is something that has always nourished me and spoken to me. And I'm really interested in how we do church in the wild and allow our surroundings to speak to us. I had also been in a retreat in the Cairngorms back in 2018, which had been transformational for me. It was a retreat run by not a Christian company actually, and an environmental company, but one of the practices that they used, you had to do a solo day in the wild, and you told them where you were to go to, and then you went where you were going to. You showed them on the map where you would be, and then you went and you spent time just in this environment and allowed the environment to speak to you. And for me, it was a very Christian experience. God was present with me, and it was life changing for me in a variety of different ways. And that had such a profound experience for me that I thought, one of my supervisors in ministry said, if things speak to you, they will speak to other people too. And so putting both of those experiences together, I thought, I wonder how I can use the environment that we live in outdoors in worship. What does that look like? Taking out the kind of hymn prayer sandwich and all the rest of it. And so I just created an experience for people that allows, that blends kind of dwelling on God's word with allowing what we see around us to speak into that and to speak to us and to enable us and help us in our encounter with God. And so walking church for me, there might be different varieties of it, but walking church for me is about walking with a passage. So we start with a kind of threshold prayer, asking God just to be present with us in our journey together, because we do it together. It's a threshold prayer, and then we dwell in the passage for a couple of minutes, whatever the passage will be, about the theme of the time together, and then we walk. And so now I do it, and I tend to do it in Alva. And so as we walk from the boathouse where we meet when we get off the ferry, as we meet there and we journey together, as we walk to the walled garden, we look for signs of whatever it is that we're thinking of on the way. We talk with one another, we meet each other, we chat about who we are and what brought us here. And the conversations flow, and God speaks into all of that. And so then if we're doing it on Alva, we get to the walled garden, and there's usually an activity of some kind. For example, the last one I did there was just after Easter. And so I used the same thing that actually I had used with the primary schools where I'm chaplain before Easter. We did a scavenger hunt in the local environment for each of those Easter assemblies this year. So I did the same thing with walking church and encouraged folk to go and find something that was prickly, something that was white, something that was empty, something that was round, something that was alive, so a cross that they could pick up, and there was something else as well. And to bring them back and to retell the Easter story with them. And so actually one family found a frog, which was fantastic. So we had the frog being Jesus jumping out of the tomb going, I'm alive!
Wonderful.
Yeah. And then on our walk back, we talk about what God has spoken to us today. And then we have communion with one another. We don't have bread and wine, but we have tea and cake provided for us in Alva by the boathouse, which is just fantastic. And so that's what we do, and it's just a different, gentle engagement with God, with nature, and with each other. And so it's really, I love it.
Is that something that you're now doing on a regular basis?
Well, so with Alva, there is a church in Alva, but it's not ours anymore. It belongs to the community, and we can't actually use the church just now because it's derelict. So they're in the process of doing. They've done a community consultation and they want to redevelop the church, and they are going to be able. Their plan. Part of their plan is that it will be able to be used for worship. So for now, what we do is church outdoors, church in the wild, walking church on Alva. And so at the moment we do that at Easter and harvest. And then that might grow and become other things. We did Church in the Wild at one of our local forests, Ardura Community Forest, just last weekend. On a Sunday evening, we have a sundown service once a month, which is contemporary worship, very relaxed. There's not a sermon. There's 4 of us, myself and 3 others, who meet together, and we plan the service and we lead it together. And it's just a kind of interactive, in the sense that don't come if you're not. Everybody who comes is happy to take part in some way, and so we do Lectio Divina rather than having a reading and a sermon, where we read the passage and then we share what it says to each of us. And we did a lovely outdoor worship at Ardura last weekend, which was just fantastic. And we had done a similar thing in the summer. We'd gone out, we'd taken it to Grass Point and had a barbecue and a swim and had worship together and things. And it's just, again, it's just about, I don't know, being fluid, responding to, being willing, not so much responding, but being willing to experiment and try new things and see what not what attracts people, because it's not about attracting people in that sense, but actually in some ways it is, because unless we try new things, which will encourage new people to give it a go, and actually they might discover that, oh, I got something out of that. I really, I really valued that time with other people. Worship is about being in community with one another, and we all find community in different ways and in different places.
Yeah, it's so important that it's, I love that idea that it's about engagement and everyone participates.
Yeah.
I think a lot of what the church has traditionally done has become a wee bit of a spectator sport. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
And our congregations become very passive and expect, it's the spectator sport. Absolutely.
You spoke about walking slowly, but you also enjoy running quickly, don't you?
I don't know about quickly. Yeah, I run in my spare time, so it's one of the things I do. I'm part of the Gaelic choir here on Mull, but I also I seem to be known for helping run our kind of local unofficial park run in Aris Park on a Saturday morning, and also I run. I'm currently at some point last autumn, I seem to have lost my senses and decided that I would like to try some long distance running. I got caught up in the excitement of everybody talking about Tyree ultramarathon last year, and I thought that sounds amazing. And seemingly you get 10 hours to do it. And I thought, I could probably do the 35 miles of Tyree in 10 hours. I've done a walking marathon before, and I did that in 7.5 hours, where I walked all the way. But I've never, ever done anything more than a half marathon. And at that point, I had only ever run a half marathon distance, which is 13.1 miles and something like 21 kilometres, I think. I had only ever done that twice. So I decided I would run Tyree ultramarathon, or I would enter Tyree ultramarathon. I thought, well, maybe if I'm going to do that, I should try a marathon. And before I could change my mind, I signed myself up for Edinburgh Marathon, which is taking place in 3 weeks. It will not be fast. I will not be breaking any world records. I will not be. I will be doing it nowhere near sub 2 hours. I will be really happy if I do it sub 5 hours. I'm not a comfortable, very long distance runner. Not at speed anyway. So it's all new.
Right. Well, wish you well for that in 3 weeks, and you're hoping to raise a wee bit of sponsorship.
Yeah, so running in aid of church funds. Having 6 buildings is expensive, and trying to, we try and use them as much as we can for our communities, so they run warm spaces and all of these kind of things. We're also we have a plan to redo the inside of Tobermory Church Hall. It's in need of upgrading. The kitchen has been condemned and all these kinds of things. So it would be really good to have a fully functioning hall that we could use for youth work and different community things. So I'm raising funds for that, and I'm really obviously being a runner, I'm really into health and fitness and well-being. And this island doesn't have any kind of dedicated indoor sports hall or anything like that. So there's a campaign at the moment to build one, and fundraising has started for that. So I'm also running to raise funds for that. Yeah, so if anybody from the Peninsula churches would like to sponsor, then there's a link on our church Facebook page, and our church Facebook page, I think, is Mull and Iona, or Iona and Mull Church of Scotland. I think it's Mull and Iona Church of Scotland.
See, and put a link in the description for the podcast. Excellent. Yep. And also coming up in May is Christian Aid Week, the 10th to the 16th of May. And I know that here on the Peninsula, on the 10th and 17th, because some of our venues just have a service fortnightly, there'll be an opportunity to make a gift to Christian Aid. That's something you'll be doing as well over on Mull.
Yeah, we have a coffee morning in Salin where funds go from that to Christian Aid, and the offering on Sunday the 10th and 17th most goes to Christian Aid in Tobermory as well. So yeah, definitely something that we support. And I think actually there's a link again to fundraising for that on our church Facebook page at the moment.
Right. Yeah. Just looking at the other things coming up over the next couple of weeks. There'll be the Tea and Scones, which is happening fortnightly at Kilhoan Church. That's next on Wednesday, the 6th of May. And over the summer months, it's 2 till 4, 4:30. I'll put the right times in the notes. Been a few weeks since I've been able to get along there myself. And then on the 21st of May, we've got our gathering at Treeslake Village Hall for coffee, cake, and conversation. And that's one of the exciting places where we're seeing church in a very different way. Some very informal worship. We would begin with a song and a prayer, and conversation, sometimes just beginning with something that's happening in the world, sometimes just sparked by some question cards. But yeah, always good conversation about life, and hopefully we get round to life in all its fullness, the life that Jesus longs for us all. Amanda, we usually include 7 quick questions in the podcast. Can you tell us a piece of advice that always sticks with you?
Okay, this is where I tell you that I'm actually rubbish at quick questions. A piece of advice, I think, okay, I always go back to what my first supervisor, not my first supervisor, it was my second supervisor, told me. And it's always stuck with me when I'm thinking about prayers or when I'm thinking about leading worship and all these kind of things. And it's a piece of advice that I always pass on to students and probationers when I have them, is that if I'm dealing with something, if I'm thinking about something, then there's chances are that somebody in my congregation is going to be dealing with that or thinking about that too. And so never be afraid to not so much share it in the sense of splurging it, but use it as an experience to pray through or to help other people and things like that. And that's something that's always stayed with me. That don't ever be afraid. It's that sense, even in life. Sometimes we think we are the only one who's dealing with something, and there's vulnerability in being able to share that. But often when we share it, it allows other people to share their experiences too, and we realise that we're not alone in it. And I think that really stayed with me. And I think it's a good, leveler's not the right word, but it's just such good advice for life, because so often we think we're the only one. and there can be shame in that. There can be all sorts of different feelings in that. But actually, if we can go over our fear and share, then it allows other people who are experiencing the exact same feelings as us to say, do you know what? I'm so glad you shared that, because that's really helped me.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Question number 2. Favourite book of the Bible?
Oh, only one? Oh my goodness. I love Deuteronomy.
Really?
Yeah. I knew you would say that. I do. I love the Exodus story. But I love Deuteronomy, that whole sense of, here you are standing on the brink of this new thing, and I will go with you.
Right.
You know, that sense of God has brought the people through Exodus, all the way through Exodus, and then Moses stands with them on the brink of the promised land and speaks to them throughout the book of Deuteronomy and encourages them to choose life.
Last Sunday I used a Deuteronomy passage. We follow the spill the beans lectionary here, and I was talking about stones. I've been thinking a lot about stones recently. Easter Sunday, the stone rolled away, and thinking about how on Palm Sunday, Jesus had said, "Don't tell me to tell the disciples to keep quiet. If they keep quiet, the very stones will shout out." And we're thinking of the stones that were put up as a memorial, the 12 stones, as Joshua would bring the people over the Jordan, as Moses earlier had got them across the Red Sea, and how stones on the one hand remind us of the suffering, the wilderness moments, but also God is with us.
Yeah, and I think Deuteronomy is just a lovely bridge between kind of the Exodus and Joshua. There has to be, there's always that pause before between something ending and something new happening. And I just love the threshold that Deuteronomy offers of choosing life. It's a choice. We have to make an actual choice here in how we live.
Brilliant. Question number 3. What would be a book, a film, or a podcast that you would encourage others to engage with?
Recently, I watched I Swear. That was really eye-opening. And I think, for the moment, that's kind of, I really spoke to me in the sense of the level of ostracization that, and I've forgotten his name, John, begins with an M, doesn't it? I can't think who it is, but the guy in it experienced growing up as a teenager in 1980s Scotland, and I think he's about the same age as me, and there was so much identification just with that time span, but to see what his experience was really, I mean, I was in tears watching it. It was a really powerful, very, very, very powerful story. And then to see what happened, I'd watched the film, thankfully, before what happened at the BAFTAs.
BAFTAs, yeah.
But then to see like the outcry after the BAFTAs, and I thought, these are people who need to watch that film.
I've seen the film as well. I've had to look it up. John Davidson.
Yeah.
A powerful story about how we misunderstand others, and
all about acceptance and tolerance, and I think these are things that are so very much needed in our communities today. Question
number 4. Who inspires you?
Somebody who's always inspired me actually is Eric Liddell. And, not from it's funny now that I run, I've not always run, but Eric Liddell was always somebody who really, really, really inspired me. Nelson Mandela is somebody who has also really inspired me, and Mother Teresa, Francis. I mean, I can't pick just one, but there are lots of people, and they are all people of faith, who have in some way been challenged, in a sense, for maybe not Nelson Mandela, I don't know about him, but certainly all of the others, had to stand up in some way for their faith, or experience adversity through their faith, or, and just I think what strikes me, it's Eugene Peterson talks about it, somebody else who inspires me. He has a book called Along Obedience in the Same Direction. And that's what he likens the journey of faith to, along obedience in the same direction. And I think all of those people have shown that, a long obedience in the same direction. They're committed to following Jesus, they're committed to living in his ways. And for me, they're people that I look up to in that, just their quiet, day by day walk with their Lord. Something to aspire to.
Absolutely. Thank you. What would be a hymn or a song that lifts you up?
Does it need to be a hymn?
No. Or a song, anything sacred or secular?
There's a few pieces of music that I blare out when I'm in the car or when I'm in the kitchen. I love the theme to Local Hero, the Going Home tune. That's one that's always, if I need a lifting up, that's one that I go to. My other kind of lifting up one is Something Inside So Strong by Labi Siffre. I love that one. Hymns, Be Thou My Vision is one of my favourite, but I love the King of Kings, Majesty, newer ones, the Jared Cooper one, and kind of some of the Hill songs and Stuart Townend and things. So there's lots of different things, but if I need an immediate pick-me-up, it's these kind of things. Or there's a lovely Bruce Cockburn piece of music. What is it called? Oh, I can't remember the name of it. It's got a funny name, and it's one that I always have to think, what is the name of that one? And it's just a lovely piece of music that I just find just so uplifting. When it's gone, it's gone. It's what it's called. Right. And it's just a really good tune. Just, lifts me up, makes me smile, encourages me. Sometimes that's more to do with the memories of these songs than the actual songs themselves. But yeah.
Thank you. Second last question. What would be a place that you enjoy visiting?
Oh, it's funny, when I lived in the Central Belt, places that I enjoy visiting are like the West Coast beaches and that kind of thing. Now that I live here, and I live on my own now, my family, I've got 4 boys, and they're all at the stage where my youngest is not long left home. But for me, actually, it's not so much the place now that's important, because I live where I'd love to live. So for me, the place is wherever they are. Wherever, if I was with my boys, actually, that would be the place. They say home is where your heart is, and I suppose my heart is with them. So it wouldn't really matter the place or what we were doing, but actually just spending time with my boys.
Great, thank you. Final question. What gives you hope for the Church of Scotland?
Interestingly, a couple of days ago, I had an elder get in touch with me and say, we were in the church for a meeting this afternoon. This was in one of the buildings. It was just the elders from that church that were meeting. And it'd been a building thing they were meeting about. And 2 girls from the high school, which is just across the road in Tobermory, came in. And everyone kind of turned around and said, can we help you? And they said, yeah, we'd really like to go into the church and pray because we've got our first exam tomorrow. And, we have kids come along to Sunday club, so they're very young. These girls, don't come along on a Sunday morning or anything like that. So what gives me hope for the church? That does, along with all of the other little green shoots that I see around these parishes. We did Messy Church for the first time in Iona, just on Easter, the Tuesday after Easter. I think 3 families come along. Iona's tiny. It's only 8 or 9 children in the primary school. So to have 3 families along at Messy Church was brilliant. Just to have new people coming on a Sunday evening to our sundown service, to all of these, to a family who have engaged with Walking Church, who don't engage in any other way with church. These are where I see the green shoots.
Yeah. And there are lots of them. And
absolutely.
Yeah. The last, that I haven't had the podcast for a couple of weeks, we post-Easter break, but the last one was we had Steve Aisthorpe as our guest from the Kilmaloo Retreat Centre, and we spoke about that idea of just noticing Absolutely. What is around us and what God is up to.
Absolutely. It's so easy to dwell on the negatives, to dwell on the things that aren't working, to dwell on the bits that are broken, to dwell on the bits that are hard. but actually I've been really challenged in the past maybe 6 weeks, less than that, maybe probably since just before Easter, to start looking for the green shoots and to focus on them. In that sense of resurrection. Yes, there is lots that is dying. There is lots that is dying around us. But hallelujah, there is life beyond that.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much, Amanda. It's been wonderful chatting with you. Thank you for your time. We usually finish off the podcast with a Bible reading. Is there a passage that you would like to share with us? And maybe you could tell us a wee bit of the why it's a significant passage for you.
It's funny, actually, thinking of Eric Liddell, this one of the passages that has always spoken to me, always, is Isaiah 40, where we talk about, rising up on eagle's wings. And I think actually that was the sermon that Eric Liddell preached before he ran in the Paris Olympics in 1924. But it was funny, the other day I was running. It's interesting that you asked me what Bible passages on my mind just now, because the other day I was running as I'm training for the marathon, which is on the 24th of May. I've been having to increase the amount that I run, and it's hard. And I'm running constantly on sore legs. I'm running constantly on sore feet. I had done my longest ever run, which was 21 miles last Saturday. And then on Tuesday, had to go out and do 11 kilometres. So 21 miles is 34 kilometres. And then on Tuesday, I had to go out and do 11 kilometres. And every bit of my body was screaming, no. My legs were tired, my feet were sore. I got a blister for the first time on Saturday, so that was still niggling. I've got a sore niggling Achilles tendon, got a tight calf, and it's all just from constant training. And as I was running along the road, I actually just was desperate. I was actually doing maybe I'll not run the full distance, maybe I'll just turn around early. Maybe, I'd got to the point where if I know the roads around me now in terms of kilometres and how far I have to run to get to wherever or whatever. And I've got to the 4 kilometre point in my run, and I thought, I could just turn around here and go back, and that would be 8 kilometres. And then I thought, no, just keep going a little bit further. You can do it. You've got it in you to keep going. And so I got through the trees as I came out of the trees, just in the distance before the hills at Benmore, I noticed a bird, and I thought, oh, that's a bit, I know now what the eagles look like, and I thought, oh, that's a bit like an eagle, I wonder. And I kind of saw it go up, and it rose up on the draft. And actually, the seagulls, I don't often see them rising up on the draft. You tend to see them flying. But this one rose up on the draft, and then as it turned around beside the hill, there's just this flash of white as its tail showed. And I thought, wow, it is a seagull. And just immediately, there's me tired and really feeling done in. And immediately the words of Isaiah 40 came to me, that those words, do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is an everlasting God. Is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He will not grow tired or weary, and his understanding no one can fathom. He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Even youths, which I'm not, grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar up on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. And I thought, that just, if I'd given up, I would have missed the eagle. Having run on to do the 5.5 kilometres where I got to turn around, meant I just got to just savor its glory, and allow God to speak to me through it. That in all things, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, even run a marathon.
Amanda, thank you so much for sharing that and for all your insights and your enthusiasm that you've shared with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for those really interesting questions that have made me think.
And thank you to everyone who is listening. And for information about all that's happening around the Peninsula Churches, do check out www.peninsulachurches.org.uk. God bless you all.